First off, just want to welcome everyone to our Toolpath AI CAM automation webinar today. We're certainly thankful for you all carving out some time to join us. With me, I have Paul Claus with the expert team over at Toolpath. Paul, do you want to maybe just introduce yourself, let the crowd know why you're here?
Yeah, hey everyone. Excited to be here today. Thanks, Kevin, for the invite. I'm a customer success manager over at Toolpath, and we've been talking to Kevin a lot about lately, learning how it fits into his quoting and programming processes, and looking forward to sharing that with all of you.
Awesome. And I think I see Al in the camera here. Al, I know you're with the Toolpath team. Do you want to take a moment to introduce yourself?
Oh boy, I'm on the spot. Yeah, I'm a machinist by trade. Kevin Lee knows that because we did our apprenticeship together. Yeah, so I worked with Kevin as a machinist for 5 or 6 years, and then I went and taught high school for 2 years. Then I started teaching HSM Works, and then Autodesk acquired HSM Works, so I led the Autodesk CAM team for a decade. And in doing that, I really started to realize that CAM is computer aided manufacturing. Humans got to make a whole lot of trivial selections of contours and pockets and make tool selections. A lot of user interface. When a lot of that can be automated, and we should flip it around. And then I saw what the Toolpath team was doing, and they gave me the opportunity to come lead and be CEO. So I joined. So what I think you'll see today is we're automating CAM, but we're building HAM. It's human-aided manufacturing, where the computer will make a bunch of decisions and then you'll guide it, kind of in the same way that the autopilot makes decisions to keep the airplane in the air, and the pilot's guiding it around weather patterns. There's more pilots now than there ever was before. It doesn't make them go away. They get to solve the more complicated problems. So getting to do that for an industry I love is oh so much fun. And careful asking me to turn my microphone on, Kevin, because I'm a talker.
Awesome. Well, thanks for jumping in, Al, and introducing yourself. Glad to have you join us. And yeah, just as a quick housekeeping item for everyone on the call, if you happen to notice your microphone is on and active, if you don't mind just being in mute mode just for the first part of the session, just to avoid any background noise. So let's get things started. To get everyone's mind kind of in the right place of why you've carved out time to be here. I know I've talked to most of you this week, and there's three really important questions that we pretty much face all the time with what we do as machinists, what we're doing as estimators and programmers, and ultimately participating in a machine shop to some level or degree. And three things I want you to think about through this presentation is, how many times are you faced with the question of, can I actually make this part? Is it the right fit for my machine shop? Do I have the right machine shop setups, the right tooling? Do I even have enough talent to be able to, go about programming this part? Some of these things. Oftentimes that can lead to, like, how am I going to make this part? Right? How many CAM setups are required to machine this thing? Heaven forbid if I, happen to feature on a part and then totally forget to quote for that, right? And then ultimately, like I said, I mentioned the word quote. Why do we do this? Why are we thinking so much about these questions? Because if we've been, asked by a customer to give them a quote to machine some parts, ultimately we have to really win that job in order to have the work, right? And so it's always that fine balancing act. I'm sure you're all doing every day to make sure you don't quote them too high because you want to get work in the shop, but at the same time, you don't want to be quoting them too low and finding out that you're working for nothing kind of thing. So that being said, I'm going to shift over to my Fusion screen for a moment just to kind of paint the picture of what we're dealing with. You may be a designer doing in-house design work in Fusion. You could even be working with SolidWorks parts or Inventor parts, or it doesn't really matter the CAD engine that's driving it. But why we're here as machinists and programmers is I may be faced with the challenge of trying to come up with a number to win the bid to get the work on my shop floor. And so I'm looking at this geometry. I'm trying to, again, go back to those three questions of, can I actually make this part? How am I going to make that part, and how much is it going to cost? All right, so I've got two parts on the screen here. And I want to show you, and part of why you're here is to see Paul and I interact together. This could be a situation where, you know, I don't have time to quote this or even make it. I need to send it out to my buddy's shop down the road, but I need a number out of him. Or I could be a designer and I've designed these parts and I'm going to send it to my friend Paul because I know he can get me a quote right away and I can count on his work to be delivered on time, and I really appreciate the quality and effort he puts into things for us, right? And so quite often in that workflow, even if I was trying to attempt to design, or I should say program this part myself and come up with an estimate, this is an example of how I used to quote parts for years, even for my own prototyping shop, right? I'd be giving some thought to breaking down the processes, trying to assign, you know, so many allocations of a shop hour against a shop rate, really trying to weed through those processes and ultimately, you know, come up with how much time is this going to take in my shop? You know, how do I schedule this? You know, what are the material costs, tooling costs, all of these things that ultimately lead to an overall price that I'm trying to get to give to my customer, just so that I can have the opportunity to win the work, right? In some cases, I've spent hours doing this, almost on a daily basis, definitely on a weekly basis. And you can see sometimes, oftentimes it's a good guesstimate, shooting from the hip based on experience. And I'm really kind of hoping that that number is going to land me the job, right? And you can see in my old Excel days here, in this case, I did win the job, and I'd be kind of tracking my time, logging my time in the shop to really find out, did I win or lose on that job? Did I make some profit, or did I just free for a week? Right? So these are the mundane tasks that we're all doing every day. And Paul and I are here today to show you a different way, using some technology to get there a little faster, right? So I'm going to drag this out of the way. One last thing, I'm going to bring my my email over here. So just for the sake of time, I'm going to play the customer's role here for a moment, where I've drafted this email. I'm going to send it to Paul. We've all got these emails that say RFQ, need quote right away. And I've attached a couple of step files. All right, so I'm going to hit send to that. That's going to kick over into Paul's email inbox there. And as that's happening, I'm going to, I guess we'll share your screen, Paul. We're going to show everyone on the call today what it looks like. You know, how are we dealing with that RFQ quote? So let me grab you up here, Paul, and I'll make you presenter there. So as everyone's kind of watching what's happening here and how Paul and I are going to interact and kind of show you the Toolpath interface, if you've got some questions or maybe you've got a list going already, sit tight on those, and we're going to be able to definitely carve out some time about halfway through today, and we'll go open mic scenario and get as many of those answered as possible. So Paul, go ahead, show the group here what you got on your email.
Yeah, so I've got an RFQ in my email with a couple step files from Kevin. I can actually forward this email and go to uploads@toolpath.com. This is being sent from the email address associated with my Toolpath account. Hit send, and we'll see very shortly here there is a second lag that those files will come in, start running, and upload. But while we wait for that, I figured I'd pull open a copy of Kevin's parts. And, you know, what Kevin was showing in his spreadsheet there was everything that it took to get those parts from that email when you received them to a finished part on the machine. And with Toolpath, when those parts complete, we'll see as soon as we have the report, we understand the number of setups, we get our full tool list for the job, we get our CAM program, we get a price for the job and a cycle time, and we can actually grab our CAM program and bring it into Fusion. Oh, sorry, that's a notification on my end. Bring our CAM into Fusion just like that. So that's how quick we can kind of get you started on all these processes right now. I look at Toolpath as an accelerant. It's not a full automator. The process isn't done, but now I can go back and review things, and instead of thinking about going back and forth between a part drawing and my tool library, making sure I have tools that reach, sending emails for the quotes, I can think about the machine, that the result I actually want on the machine. So Kevin, maybe let's go back to the report and we can kind of talk through how Toolpath works and how that relates to some of the things you're doing with the spreadsheet.
Yeah, I kind of want to see, how do we get here? Like, this seemed to happen like a magic wand, right? All of a sudden, you forwarded this email to your uploads at toolpath.com account, and the next thing you know, I see some setups in Fusion, right? So yeah, let's just kind of talk through this and show everyone what's really happened here. What is it doing for us?
Yeah. So, Kevin, what were your 3 questions?
So one of the questions I had was, is this a part that I can actually machine? Do I need really specialized cam setups? What about the tooling? Does Toolpath use my own Fusion tool libraries?
Yep, so Toolpath will take a Fusion tool library. Right now it's not linked to your Fusion tool library, but we've got some easy ways to go back and forth. So right now with this part you sent over, I'm looking at it with the tools for, well, actually Ben, who's on the call, his brother Speedio in our shop in Ohio. And Toolpath has shown me some red features. I can also see some tool recommendations here, and these are tools that Toolpath is looking through. In this case, are full drill index that's included, as well as some Kennametal recommended tools to machine these features that I don't have a tool for. So if I go ahead.
Sorry, Paul, I was going to ask. So do those red zones tell me that it couldn't find a tool in my library to machine them, or what is that telling me when it's red?
Exactly. The red is a feature or, a collection of faces, some geometry that Toolpath was unable to match a tool to with the tools it was given. So it's looking outside of my tools and into vendor or generic libraries here.
So you're telling me Toolpath is making recommendations. If it can't find the tool in my own library, it's making recommendations for this Kennametal, half-inch, bullnose end mill. Is that to machine that kind of radius feature we see on that little ledge?
Yep. So yeah, let's look at that. If we want to understand why your tools can't machine that feature, and why it needs to recommend a tool, I like using the mouse over tool for this. You can turn it on in the toolbar up here and then select geometry. I can come in here, get some details on the geometry, see the roughing tool that it can use. So I do have a tool that can rough this geometry. Of course I do. There are very few constraints on that. But I don't have a tool that can finish it, and it's telling me that this 1/8 inch ball is the closest match. I can click this arrow icon. These are all the compatible recommended tools from the Kennametal library. And actually, if I come through your tool library, I can see that this ball mill that is the closest match doesn't quite have the reach for that feature.
Oh, so it's determining that for me. It's helping me understand, can it do it with my own tools? If not, I can go and grab a recommended tool.
Exactly. So if I wanted to accept that recommended tool, I could do it through the overview page like we saw, or I can come in here, select it, and then Toolpath will prompt me to regenerate the report.
So I see at the top of your screen there, Paul, it looks like tabs, right? I'm noticing it looks like you're in the overview tab. I see some other tabs there that talk about setups and tools and strategy, and ultimately I'm quite interested in that estimate tab. But what's happening in the setups tab? Is it telling me how many cam setups are required to machine that part?
Yeah, so really what the setups tab does is it's telling you the required machining directions for the part. And that's given your tool library. So, if you have like key seat features, if you run it with a library with a key seat feature versus without, you'll get a different number of setups based on your capabilities, right? Right now, Toolpath supports 3-axis milling, so a direction is synonymous with a setup.
So over on the right-hand side of your screen, I notice at the top, it looks like there's a setup 1 and then a setup 2. Right now you're showing setup 1. What you're mousing over right now, is that doing what we call automatic feature recognition, like it's understanding surfaces that it needs to machine? Is that what we see there?
Yeah, so it's recognizing features it needs to machine, really. what Toolpath has done to develop these setups is it's taken the part geometry as well as my tool library as constraints and then organized it into viable machining directions based on the tool geometry I have available, and then grouped the features within those directions.
Okay, so it's looking at machinability. It's thinking about how many CAM setups are required. It's recognizing what we have available for tools in our Fusion library. If something's not there, it's making recommendations, which is pretty cool. When you go into CAM setup number 2, what do we see there?
So we see the flip of the part. If I click on the setup name, so setup 2 there, it'll highlight all the features that are machined in this part or in this setup. And yeah, so this is because I changed the tool for that. And if I did I actually have found that I don't need to do it for the second copy of that feature because once the tool's available, it knows to use it.
Okay.
Yep.
What about holes? I mean, sometimes I get models that have threaded hole features on them, and sometimes I don't. It could just look like a cosmetic thread. I'm looking on the blueprint and it actually calls out a thread feature. If my model comes into Toolpath and it looks like a simple hole, but it in fact is supposed to be threaded, can I interact with Toolpath and say, yes, these holes here have a specific thread in them?
Yeah, so Toolpath very recently supports modeled threads, and I'll give a disclaimer if anyone on the call is like, I'm going to go upload a ton of parts with modeled threads. I did find some small bugs on it yesterday that we'll be working through. But in the case of modeled threads, the expected behavior and what it does most of the time now is it'll recognize the thread and then look through your libraries for either a tap or a thread mill. There are some tricks on prioritizing between those. For cosmetic or unmodeled threads that have a whole call out, we can apply the threads right here in the features. So we can do that to the group of holes or to individual holes.
Very cool. Well, what's in the tools and the strategy tab? Can you explain what's going on in there?
Yeah, so the tools is a list of the tools that Toolpath has selected from my library to machine this part. I can download a tool list. This is actually brand new, like in the last hour. I can, thumb through and see where the tools are being used. So we'll see that this hole is actually being bored. I must not have a drill for it. And of course, for many of these screens, I can get to those feature details. So I can see this is a little oversized in my drill. Yeah, so Kevin, I'm curious, like, what was your process when you were programming for tool selection previously?
Well, I mean, the machine I have in my own shop, it's a very small tool carousel, and I'd quite often have, 5 or 6 tools that never move. They stay in those pocket positions. And I kind of counted on those tools through strategic templates to help me automate some of the programming. Because ultimately, when I was trying to build an estimate or a quote, I was trying to get some handle on how much cycle time's involved, right? So I was kind of using some CAM template automation in Fusion to do that. But a lot of the times I sometimes miss a feature, right? Or I maybe wouldn't have the right tool that I should use. So I kind of like the tool recommendation piece of this.
Yeah,
Um,
so the tool recommendations are great for finding those tools. A lot of folks I talk to are just like, it helps me with decision paralysis. Like I go to the website and there's 40 tools that could work, and that now it's just like, here's one that's going to work. We're good. The other thing with your templates and kind of your preferred tools, so wanting to use what's in the machine versus what may require some setup versus what you might have to order. Within the cut config setup, which think about that as just a group of tool libraries and you telling Toolpath some of your machining preferences, you can do some prioritization. So I set this, like you might set this up as my preferred tools are in the tool changer. My standard tools are tools I have, but some assembly required. Backup tools I fear using for whatever reason. And recommendations, of course, will be things I accepted that I'll have to order.
Very cool. I see a strategy tab. Is Toolpath programming my part for me?
Toolpath is programming your part. We're not visualizing, or actually I have a feature flag on, so I'm visualizing the cutting passes a little bit here. You'll probably see some wonky stuff with the leads and some of the linking moves. We're working on that. But Toolpath is actually programming ModuleWorks, creating a ModuleWorks program for this part at this phase. And that's how we get the accurate cycle time for estimating.
I see the estimate tab is at the end of the line there. So it's kind of using all my feeds and speeds from my own tool libraries that I've been building for years. And it's actually programming the part for me. Is that what's giving me a decent, accurate estimate? Like, of course, I got to upload my shop rate, and do you mind going into that tab there, Paul? And let's show the group here what's going on in there in that estimate tab. Because ultimately, if I don't win the bid, Paul, from my customer, I don't have the work to do anyways, right? So
yeah, there you go.
I'm keenly interested to get a number like immediately, so I don't spend half my day just trying to win the job, right?
Yep. Yeah, so the estimate page here, here's your number. You asked me for quotes on 1, 10, and 50 of these, right? So 1 would be $122, 10, $234 with a unit price of 23, and 50, just over $730, just under $15.
So this is giving me real-time feedback where if I'm talking to my customer, you could be telling me what the difference is in price, like in real time.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing for working with customers is the cost is broken down into setups and then specific features. So if you're either working on your own products or going back and forth on some design for machining, back and forth on cost feedback, it's really easy to zero in on those expensive features.
Paul, on the far left side of your screen, I see where it says setups with your estimate build. Setup 1 and setup 2 is a $30 charge. What if I'm kind of quoting my jobs based on, so many segments of an hour? Like you divide an hour in 10, you got 0.3 of an hour to do this, 0.4 of an hour to do that kind of thing.
Yes. So what's your hourly rate at the shop?
Well, just a lot of shops I talk to, my shop, I'm usually around that $100 an hour shop rate. It seems to catch a lot of shops out there. Some are higher, some are lower. Kind of depends. Do you need work or don't you need work?
Yeah.
But I see that it looks like you can assign hour or like time allotments to each setup based on the shop rate.
Yeah, so what do you think? Let's say in my example here, these were all standard tools. So let's say you had to set them up in your shop because you didn't have them there. How long do you think that would take for setup 1 and to get the machine tooled up?
Yeah, I mean, if I'm using standard tools that are already in there, quick probe operation, half hour will catch a lot of that. If I've got to start putting end mills and collet holders and messing around doing that, loading the tools and pull studs, maybe 3/4 of an hour to load up a few tools, somewhere along that lines. What if I had to order a new tool because it was a recommendation and say it's going to cost me $130 to buy that tool? Can I build that into this quote too, so I don't forget to add that?
Yeah, so under additional items here, you can add in and say end mill, whatever it is, add your cost.
While you're doing that, Paul,
yeah,
I know from experience, Kevin is a pain in the arse, so you should probably add a Kevin surcharge if he's the one asking for the rush job.
Yeah, that's true. I'll give him the PETA fee. That's what I like to do there.
There you go, Kevin. I still love you.
Occasionally, I'll give Kevin the negative discount.
I can vouch for that too.
There we go. So yeah. I can actually add my discounts. If I need work for the shop floor, I can, dial it back so I don't have to let go guys. I can get some work, right? Okay.
Yep, as well as you and I have talked a bit about the stock markup price there as well. So
okay.
Lots of ways to adjust there, and there are ways to set some of these as your defaults. The default all runs through an estimate preset, which is the exact same fields, just you set the defaults. What we found is every part's a little different. It's hard to be able to put all the constraints for fixturing everything that's going to go on at the machine into this. So this is where I'm kind of look at the part critically, thinking about the setups it gave me, thinking about the tool selection, and kind of adjusting these numbers for what feels right.
So just so I get this right, you're telling me that you basically forwarded that email I sent you asking for a quote. You send it to uploads@toolpath.com, and it did all this kind of behind the curtain in a very short period of time.
Yep. Yeah.
And so how do we get this? Say I tell you, Paul, you know what, go ahead with the 10 quantity order. How do I get this into Fusion? Like, what happens next?
Yeah, well, first thing I would want to do here is regenerate, just to add the vendor tools we added in. So I could do that, but I think in the interest of time, we'll just skip those operations and bring it into Fusion.
Okay.
I showed that earlier; it's already here, but just to show it again. One click here, import into new document. We can also bring CAM into an existing Fusion document. So I'm guessing a lot of you on this call have your work holding all modeled up. You can send setups from there and come back. We'll show a quick example of that later.
Paul, sorry to cut you off. I see some icons in your toolbar. So is this a Toolpath app that you install into Fusion, and you can just literally click on those icons right there in your manufacturing toolbar?
Yep, just a add-in, same as any other add-in in Fusion. So if you're familiar with the process for installing those, it's quick and easy.
Okay. I notice on the import dialog, it says something along work holding selection. I know we're going to look at a different example here in a few moments, but it looks like you can coordinate with some self-centering vices and automatic stock generation.
Yep, this is a preview feature right now, but I'm happy to set it up for anyone. Just hit me on the chat here, and I'll enable work holding for you.
Okay. Can you open up the CAM setups in Fusion on that part, Paul? I want to see what Toolpath, like, what did Toolpath do for me here? You said it programmed the part.
Yeah.
Is there toolpaths in those CAM setups?
There are. Strangely, one of the hard things with the Fusion API is to get it to expand these by default. But right now it's thinking through. We can see it's created my setups, and we have our CAM program with Ben's tools for the shop in Ohio, our stock in our vise, and actually in this case on our 0 point. Once you're in Fusion, everything's editable. It's just like any other CAM program. The folks that I work with, talking to them with 3-axis parts, I hear Toolpath programs anywhere from 60 to 99% of the part for me. And I think where it really helps me out is a lot of the low level using the CAM software and not thinking about the result I actually want on the machine. So coming through this, Kevin, you're a guy with pretty well developed CAM templates. What challenges did you have with the CAM templates in Fusion? Or
Well,
templated CAM operations, I mean.
sometimes, there's challenges with like rest machining operations where I go in and rough some out with a larger tool, and then I got to worry about, the remaining radiuses and corners, and going in with smaller tools. That sometimes is a bit of a hiccup. Even I know I do a lot of training with some Fusion customers, and oftentimes with new learners, it's hard to kind of map out the process, right? So you're telling me Toolpath figured out a workflow, right? Obviously, it starts out with some roughing and then goes through a series of finishing operations. Did it do this for CAM setup number 2 as well? Can you open that one?
Yep, yeah, we don't do work holding for setup number 2 yet, but we'll see the top hat stock there, and then face does some adaptive clearing there. I might actually face down further. Well, actually, can I? Where's the part end here? Oh no, that is right.
So when it sorry to cut you off there, Paul, when it created the CAM setup number 2, did it automatically tell the stock to look at what was previously machined from setup 1?
Yeah, so that uses basically when you send from Toolpath to a new document, every subsequent setup will use from preceding setup with continue rest machining on.
So if there was 4 or 5 setups required, it would keep doing that, like
Yep.
sequential or setups. Okay.
Yep.
That's pretty cool. What if I was designing a part in Fusion where I was designing my work holding, like say some soft jaws, where I had it kind of figured out on the CAD side. Can I take that and go into Toolpath with it to automate the cam and the estimating?
Yeah, so this is a part I've been working on. This is for EMO. This is a vacuum fixture that'll be on the Datron Cube. If we go over to manufacture here, we can see I've actually created setups for this. First setup with cylindrical stock. Second setup looks a little funky, but we'll see I've actually set it up exactly as you said there, from proceeding setup and continue rest machining. And it makes sense because I don't have any operations in setup one, so I haven't removed any material.
So what you're saying, what we see on your screen, Paul, is you've created this infusion yourself, right, as a human, and you've thought about, hey, I want to do setup one on the left. We're going to flip it upside down in this block fixture, and we have a secondary cam setup on the right. Is this a way that you can help guide the AI automation and Toolpath to follow your process? Because you've clearly thought about this. You want to definitely do setup one first, right? Does
Yep.
that guide Toolpath in that workflow?
Yeah, so there's a couple ways to force setup one. We do have an option within Toolpath to say, hey, no, you do this as the first setup. When I want full control over setup ordering, I will I'll create the setups and send from Fusion. I also do this right now for like Toolpath right now is optimized for like standard rectangular bar stock sizes, so it'll round to nearest. So if I'm using custom stock, I'll often start in Fusion as well.
Okay.
But yeah, so to send this in, we can hit send part to Toolpath. It's going to ask if I want to use model body or existing setups. I want existing setups here. I'll check the ones I have. Something else you could do with this workflow, as you mentioned earlier, your probing templates, Kevin. You could have that set up in this file and just not send it, and Toolpath won't touch them. It'll just leave them as they are.
Okay. So just by hitting OK there, that's going to port it into my Toolpath dashboard. Is that what's happening now?
Yep, this will send it to Toolpath. You can see it's open in the web browser. Part will run. I think we can let this one run in real time and maybe start some Q&A if that works.
Sure. Well, I have one question though, Paul. That
Sure.
email I sent you, if you go back to your project list on the left there, and there was 2 step files in that email I sent you. Can you just go up to the other one, see what it did for us? Just really curious to see.
Yeah, let's have a look at this one. So again, I'm looking at the tools, Ben's tools. So Ben, you can almost make this part, but Kevin keeps sending me parts with metric holes on them.
So, at this point, I sent you, I'm interested in a quote because I got to win the job first. If you go up to that estimate tab, is that where I can call my customer and give them a number and just try to win the job on the phone kind of thing? That gives me a decent, fairly dialed in estimate cost, I believe.
Yeah, and there are, as long as you've set up Toolpath to match your costs that you want to run at the shop, as well as your speeds and feeds to a certain degree, so you get that accurate machining time. But once you're set up, this should be a number you can work with. One thing I would be careful about is nowhere on this page do we see profit margin. So I really think about Toolpath right now more of a tool to understand my machining costs than maybe the final cost I'm going to give. So Kevin, I think there would still be a step in your process, but it'd be you looking at that 140 and saying, okay, what do I want to make on this job? Knowing how much time it's going to take me and how much, let's call it consumable or time cost is associated with it.
Right. But what you're saying is, I mean, this is a fairly dialed in number here, right? I mean, within kind of 2 minutes, I can get to that number and then just factor in my profit margin or what have you, and call my customer and give them a number. I mean, the idea is we got to win the work to have the work, right? And then obviously exporting over to Fusion. This is kind of more of a support question for the Toolpath team. If it made sense for my shop, and say I have a 3-axis CNC machines, I've got some CNC lathes, I've got maybe 4 and 5 axis simultaneous. Where do you think Toolpath fits the best?
Well, so right now, Toolpath thinks in 3-axis, and the CAM operations are set up as 3-axis. We are working on positional multi-axis, so that's a project for this year. With some of the import into current document, like I've been playing with some workflows to kind of force that, but of course it does require me to go in and uh, essentially like change all the setups and still add tool orientation, but that is on our near-term roadmap. We don't support turning yet. We'll be talking more seriously about turning once we get through multi-axis milling.
Gotcha. Okay, so sounds like to me it's a really good fit if you got a shop that's got 3-axis CNC mills, and they handle 60 to 80% of your work on a day-to-day basis. It looks like a good fit for that. Is that a
Yeah,
fair statement?
lots of 3-axis mills. I'd say if you're in a situation where maybe your actual part work is more complex, but you find yourself with a lot of like fixturing or like support part dependencies that are causing bottlenecks, that'd be a good fit to take that off your table. The other thing is, like I talk to shops with guys that are like, I'm quoting 20 parts a day and I'm just guessing at it. So in that scenario, really where I see Toolpath as a safety net to make sure that you're not missing any of those, hole on the side feature that makes another setup and things like that. Not missing that one tool can't reach. Yeah.
I've seen on your website that it says you guys suggest that, if you're a CNC programmer involved with programming toolpaths and estimating parts, you're suggesting it's, a savings of nearly 80% of that programmer or estimator's time. I could see today, just by simply forwarding that email, a lot of this information is kind of being tackled in the back end very quickly. There is a chat panel in here. Maybe if you have a question and you don't want to speak in the mic, that's fine. You can type it in the chat panel. I'm going to bring over this Q&A slide. And I mean, the whole purpose of us was to, get folks on the call today, show you a few things about this AI CAM automation. Let me get into here from current slide. There we go. I guess a question that I'll maybe kickstart the group with is, how do I get started with this, Paul? Is there what's that look like? Is there a trial?
Yep. Yeah, we have a free 2-week trial. If you go to toolpath.com, there's a try Toolpath now button that'll get you started.
Okay. And I'm sure some folks kind of do ask, this sounds almost too good to be true in some ways. What's it cost? If I see this as being a fit for my shop, is it expensive, or what's this look like for value?
Yeah, so for the first user and subscription, we offer a monthly subscription that's $179 a month, or annual subscription for $1,500. If you're looking for more seats than that, let's talk.
Okay. All right. Sounds pretty affordable. I mean, look at the time in a day I spend estimating and programming parts. It looks like a pretty quick payback, even
Well,
just on a monthly basis.
here's my question for you on that, Kevin, is have you had nightmare jobs where you've like missed a feature?
And this is being recorded. I don't know how much I want to admit to that, but yes, I've had jobs where I've missed a feature. So as a result, I forgot to kind of add that into my quote. And so I send the quote out the door, and just luck has it, I'm the lowest bidder because I forgot something. So I win the job inadvertently, happy or not happy. But I take a lot of pride in the reputation I've built over the years and the connections in my networking channel and my customer base, in that I can't just say, oh, I'm sorry, I got to charge you another $800 because I missed something. Like everyone on the call, we follow through with it, right? We've got a business we've built, we've got some reputation behind what we stand for, and we suck it up and we take it off the chin and we do the work, and it feels like we're working for free. And it hurts when that happens, because financially it can be a hit. it takes time out of my week away from my family. That's important to all of us, I'm sure, in some level. I just don't want to miss those things, right? Getting quotes out the door anymore. Are guys using this as like a double check? Like, what happens if I'm worried that this isn't giving me an accurate estimate? Say I want to continue, manually, quoting my jobs because that's the way I've done it for 30 years. It looks like this could be a good secondary double check, if you will, to build some trust in it. Are some guys using it that way?
I've seen it used that way. Generally, it becomes the primary check because a lot of guys will be like, oh, well, this is off. And then, the key in that scenario is talk to me because then we can work together to usually it's fixing the speeds and feeds or maybe doing some things with forcing setups or playing with tool eligibility for different types of operations to get the results you want. That can be the challenge. But if we go through that process and dial it in, that's where it kind of becomes the primary quoting tool.
Gotcha.
But yeah, in your situation, if you wanted to keep using the spreadsheet as a maniac, you could just use this to be like, all right, my number of setups is the same. My number of tools is, in range. We're good.
Okay. I guess I see a few folks in the camera. Everyone on the cameras knows me. And I'll maybe pick on one individual. I've worked with him in the past, Matt, if you don't mind. Matt's joining the call today, and Matt's an educator, and so he teaches students kind of at the high school level. And my question for you, Matt, is do you see this as actually a unique tool to help new learners? Like say someone is you've hired them out of school and they don't know programming, but you need them to pick up some of the backlog. Do you think Toolpath could kind of lay down some footwork as to say, here's some CAM setups, here's some Toolpath strategies that can kind of get you started? What's your thoughts on that, Matt?
I could see this as a really good guide, running just some simple parts through and giving them some templates to work from, as well as learning from possibly better methods of machining things to get your times down. For us too, and I just actually went through and managed to get the XS Tech tool library uploaded. That's kind of what I was playing around with to make sure it was entered in there properly. But for me, our machines are quite small. So we'd have to set some parameters. I don't know if realistically I could afford the fee. I would absolutely love to have it. And I do see students benefiting from this for sure.
You can absolutely afford the fee because it's short-sighted to charge schools for software. It's free.
So Al, you're saying, and I understood that from before, it's free for educators and students. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's pretty. Okay. It's pretty short-sighted for a software company to charge a school.
Well, that helps us out. I know I did sign up for the trial. I have been using it just today kind of thing when I had some time. I went through it. I'm going to need some more time to learn it myself. But definitely I could see where it's a good tool to be able to get students being able to write tool paths that are more in line with what the best methodology would say to kind of to follow. So for us too, from my perspective anyways, we try to minimize the number of tool changes so that students can get some experience, but that they're not having to struggle with multiple tool changes. So realistically, 2 or 3 different tools would be kind of my goal for some of this stuff. So
yeah, for the student learning. Awesome.
Yeah.
Matt, there would be a couple options on that. Is one, we have this tooling capacity in the cut config here. So you could say like, I only want to use 2 tools, and then Toolpath could look through a larger library and find the 2 optimal tools for that. Or we could just set you up with 2 tools. But yeah, we'll make sure that your account's on the EDU license.
Yep, that would be great. And, I'd love to have that capability. We are looking at growing what we can do at this school. But right now, we don't actually have an automatic tool changer. So it's all manual. The experience is good. Obviously, when they get out into industry, they're going to have access to quite a bit more. So,
yeah.
Yep.
Paul, quick question for you. I was just looking in the chat panel. Just wanted to call out a few other questions here before we run out of time. A good client of ours, his name's Sean. He asked in the chat panel, can the tool recommendations that Toolpath makes be filtered by the manufacturer? And what manufacturer's tools are offered in that recommendation? Can you highlight some of that area?
Yep. So for the tool recommendations, and I don't know if we're asking about literal filtering or in the results, but we could search in the cut configs here in the recommendations tab for the vendor. Right now we have Kennametal, Haas, Harvey, and then we have, a full drill index, some sample tools, standard chamfer tools, things like that. The other thing you can do here is I bet quite a few folks on the call use the vendor libraries in Fusion, and you actually can create your own recommendation libraries from these vendor libraries too. So if you see if your tool vendor isn't in our list right now, one, if you have a contact, we'd love to talk to them and get them in our list. Two, you can actually come in here and say, these are the tools I want to grab from this library. Some of these are huge, and I do recommend some filtering. Like Toolpath doesn't love looking at over, let's say, 1,500 tools at the same time. But I'll kind of come into these and say, what is this library? I think it's the GAR end mills. I'll kind of be like, here's what I'm looking for, bull nose, flat, maybe set a diameter range to kind of scale it back just a little bit.
Okay. Thanks, Paul.
Hey, Paul, while we're talking about that, could you go into one of the results that shows a recommended tool?
Yeah.
Maybe a Kennametal one. So that Kennametal tool, so I've decided I want to follow that recommendation. What do I do from here?
Yep, so I can click on the tool there. The Kennametal tools, we've got the product ID right there, and we actually have a link to the site that's going to get us in touch for me with the Kennametal sales team.
Oh, very cool. Another question that came up, I had a great conversation with him. His name's Julian. You'll see it in the chat panel. But we talked about this yesterday in that they are dealing quite often with customer design revisions where they're importing native CAD geometry. So for example, SolidWorks or even step files, they're bringing them into Fusion through any CAD. I know this maybe takes it to another level here, but say hopefully we're still going here.
Sorry. So yeah, that's me, I think.
Yeah, they've imported their this native CAD geometry through any CAD through Fusion Team. Okay, they've went ahead and maybe created 2 or 3 CAM setups to help guide toolpaths. They pick on the link in the toolbar. They port that Fusion document into Toolpath, where it's going to start calculating toolpaths for each of those 3 setups, and in turn build out an estimate. Okay, you follow me so far?
Yeah.
And then in Toolpath, you port it back into that original document, okay? But then, and correct me if I'm wrong, they're going to save it there. They're ready to post it. But then if the customer comes back and says, hey, I'm going to send you revision 2 of that step file. So I know where Julian's going with this. Can he simply go into Fusion Team, upload Rev 2 of the native CAD document? That Fusion document is then connected to that, in this case, step file, right? A lot of their tool paths are going to update, but then what happens if they need to kind of re-quote it based off that revision? Or like, can they then take it back into Toolpath and reassess it again? Like maybe there's a feature added that, you know, is really difficult to machine and it adds 1 or 2 more setups.
Paul, do you mind? I'm gonna try and take this question because it's a super fun one.
Yeah.
I've spent a lot of time working on parametric CAD CAM, and what AnyCAD does is allow you to have the advantages of parametric CAD CAM with different CAD. So AnyCAD, for people that don't know, if in Fusion you change the geometry, the toolpath updates. That's parametric CAD CAM. AnyCAD says, well, if the CAD came from some other system, the geometry updates. But it's limited in the sense that it has to be a parametric update. A slot got longer, a hole got deeper, a pocket got larger. It doesn't work when there's a fundamental change in the geometry. So the benefits of the toolpath approach is it's going to look at it again with the same sets of rules and attack the part through the same sets of rules and work in any situation, whereas a parametric CAD CAM system is going to work when there's parametric changes to the model. So I think the question, Julian, would be, is your customer making small parametric changes to the model? In that case, AnyCAD works good and you don't even need to run things through Toolpath at all anyway. Or is the customer making a fundamental enough change that you actually have a slot on the side of the part and you need another setup anyway, and it broke your thinking on the setup. So that's kind of like maybe a bigger picture. The tighter version of it is the workflow that Paul showed, where you can go to the Fusion file, send it to Toolpath, have it recompute, and bring an answer back. I hope that helps.
Thanks, Al, for kind of walking us through that.
Yeah, just to jump in on that one, Julian, I think you and I talked about this a couple months ago, and I think it would be worth trying out the import to Fusion. The key that you're going to run into is Toolpath does create some geometry, and you'd want to be careful about that because that would be separate from your AnyCAD update. So I think the workflow right now would be an AnyCAD update also always has to trigger a rerun of the part through Toolpath, rather than like expecting all the toolpaths to update directly to the AnyCAD update after they're sent once. Makes sense?
Okay, cool. Yeah. I know I just don't want to run out of time here, Paul. I see there's 2 or 3 more questions. One, I think Al might have answered it in the chat panel there. There was another question from Julian. He asked, what are the options to push the quote info from the estimate tab into like an ERP system?
Yeah, today there's none unless we pushed an update today, but you will see us add a copy to CSV file and export on the estimate page.
Just for proof that we're working on it elsewhere. It didn't make it today, but you can download the tool list now.
Okay, so you'll end up with a download for the estimate page. That'll be a CSV file.
Oh wait!
Oh no, it's there. Huh? Look at that! Look at that! We're getting surprised in real time.
Yeah, it's not. That's wrong. It's download the tool CSV still instead of estimate.
Okay, yeah. So there'll be an estimate. Yeah.
Okay.
Things are moving fast.
Yeah, well, that's awesome. In that statement, Paul, things are moving fast. What's the support like at Toolpath? Say I get on board with the trial and I got further questions, or say I try out a monthly subscription. Like, how is your team going to support me in adopting this really cool stuff?
Yeah, so I mean, Al talked at the beginning about human-aided manufacturing, and we're all big hams around here. So whether you're on a trial, you subscribe. Myself, Ben's on the call. He's our content manager. Al are always happy to chat with you.
Do a chat now. I've been multitasking on the webinar and helped 2 people out, so why don't I just help you out now?
Yeah, let's see. Hi, Al.
The chat on your website, I see, or right
inside. It's built into the product.
Oh, cool.
It's not AI.
All right. Well, that's working. I'll throw another question at you, Paul. One of our valued customers here.
Sorry, that's my incoming chat. I forgot to turn it off for the webinar.
Are we out of time? What is that?
Yeah.
The question was, they already have Fusion subscription, several seats. they want to know, do they need additional fusion capability to use Toolpath estimating software? Like, I think maybe they're leaning like, do they need the manufacturing extension to do this, or is it just, your base fusion sub?
Yeah, so right now, base Fusion sub is all that's required. I mean, Toolpath will run on a trial of Fusion or a hobby license. Any access to Fusion can run the add-in. Yeah, does that answer the full question? I feel like I missed part
Yeah, I
there,
think because
sorry.
we have some clients on the call that
Manufacturing extension.
manufacturing.
So right now we don't use the manufacturing extension. I think it would be an interesting thing to explore, especially as we get into multi-axis. I mean, even 3-axis to burr has some cool options that we could think about. So we don't use any of it yet, possibly in the future.
Okay.
Hey, Paul. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, hey
Okay.
Scott.
Go ahead, Scott.
Hey, before we hit the hour, there's just a couple of questions from Sean that we might want to address on the call. But do you want to talk a little bit about how Toolpath deals with the kinematics or considers kinematics of machines at the moment, if at all? And then the second question is, 14 days is not long enough for a trial. Do you have recommendations to make sure all relevant features are set up properly in Fusion? Which is a great question as well.
Yes. Okay, so starting with the trial, shops get busy. That's all good, Sean. If you need more time, shoot me an email and I'll give you more time, and that goes for anyone on the call.
At the same time, the subscription cost is less than $200 a month. It isn't that much, right?
Yeah, or commit to it for a month, and if it doesn't work out, I bet you saved enough time that it works out on the monthly license, $179 a month. Scott, your other question, or Scott and Sean, your other question was machine kinematics. Right now, really the input to Toolpath is your tool library and your feeds and speeds. We don't look at machine kinematics or any of that quite yet. But as we move towards multi-axis, those are things we have to consider as dependencies.
But on that note, though, Paul, like if you forward your RFQ quote to Toolpath, you're getting an estimate, you're getting some processes dialed in. You export to Fusion, you got your CAM setups there and your Toolpath reading those setups. At that point, you can just edit the setup and add your machine in, right? If you're looking for kinematic machine simulation.
Yep, exactly.
Okay. So there is, we always use the term a workaround in some shape or form to get that there, but it's not automatic currently, just to clarify.
Yep. Yeah, not automatic currently, but you could link it in. That's the big thing is once you're in Fusion, everything is editable like any other Fusion program.
Awesome. Well, I know we're rounding out near the top of the hour here. I know everyone's time is super valuable, so I don't want to steal it away or hold anybody hostage. I'm sure we're going to wrap things up here. Is there anything, Al, or the folks or the experts at Toolpath team, Paul, anything else you want to add here
I'm gonna do it for you. If you subscribe to Toolpath, you subscribe directly with Toolpath. Paul will support you, but obviously you love working with Kevin. Make sure you use his little referral code, and that'll connect the support and the purchase with Kevin. So
Okay.
that's the one thing I'll add.
Awesome, thanks, Al. Yeah, I can plan to reach out. Like I said, it's not about pushing something on you. It's really about showing you an opportunity where maybe you could see a fit in your shop for using this type of workflow. Our reasons for being here is to help you get back some time in your day, every day, right? So if you think this is a good fit potentially, I'm going to suggest that let's help you get started on that trial. Upload some files, see some of that magic happen, and between us here at LeeVerage and the Toolpath team, let's coordinate some time offline together, each of you, to help you get things dialed in, get your tool libraries in there, and help you learn how to use this fantastic tool. Again, it's another tool in your toolbox that you can use to get some time back in a day, right? And we're all very excited. I'm sure Al and Paul and Scott and everyone on the Toolpath team, we're here to help you guys, learn how to adopt this technology and move it forward in your shops for the next level of manufacturing. On that note, I just wanted to take a moment and thank you, Paul, for taking us through this kind of workflow and kind of seeing the interface and learning how we can, get some manufacturability analysis figured out, get a part estimate immediately that we can get to our customer, and then of course seeing what that looks like when we push it into Fusion to simulate those tool paths. So thank you for kind of showing us that, as well as fielding the questions with some solid answers. I really appreciate you doing that for us today.
Hey, thanks. I appreciate you having me, and everyone on the call. Thanks for coming. I'm curious. I'll ask the folks on the call. Does this seem like something that would help at your shop? Don't all jump in right away.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, give it a go. Run some parts through, and chat with Kevin or I or Ben or Al. We look forward to hearing from you.
Awesome. All right. Well, we'll stick on here for a couple of minutes, guys. If anyone has some other questions they want to ask, we won't bail on everybody. But if you need to get back to your busy day, you're welcome to jump, and we'll certainly be in touch in the coming days and weeks.
Hanging out for a bit. It was good seeing you again, Kevin.
Yeah, let me just get the recording here. Hang on.